Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Improving Treasury Onboarding, the Power of Paperless. I'm Joe Pizzo, Vice President of Paperless Enterprise Solutions at Wausau Financial Systems, and I'm pleased to be joined by Dave Robertson, Partner at Treasury Strategies, Steve Jenrick, Vice President of Information Systems at West Suburban Bank, and Christine Lund, Deposit Product Specialist, Lead at Aleris Financial. Today we'll be discussing key challenges and opportunities Treasury departments are facing in achieving operational efficiency, especially around the best practices and justifying spend for paperless Treasury. Dave and I will provide a quick overview, and then we will get right into the discussion with Christine and Steve to talk about their experiences implementing a paperless Treasury solution. A quick piece of housekeeping: if you wish to ask questions, you can do so in the question box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and we'll handle these questions offline after today's webinar. Let's start with what a paperless Treasury solution is. A paperless Treasury solution is more than just a single product. A true paperless Treasury solution is the combination of refined business processes enabled by technology to meet the requirements of all the stakeholders involved in the onboarding process. From the first interaction between the customer and the Treasury sales officer to the generation of billing statements in finance, paperless Treasury connects the stakeholders with each of the underlying systems. Whether it's sales accessing CRM, the customer receiving notifications through the business banking portal, or the operations team coordinating setup requirements with their outsourcing partner, everyone involved can benefit from improved visibility, efficiency, and quality. Before I pass things over to Dave, let's take a quick poll. Where are you today in terms of migrating to a paperless Treasury onboarding process? Using the polling window in the lower right corner of your screen, please select the most accurate answer. Have you chosen a vendor and started your implementation? Do you have plans to review vendor options? Is it on your radar but you don't know where to start? Or are you not planning on doing anything just yet? We'll give everybody a few seconds to make their selections. All right, so looks like the results are starting to come in.
I'm not sure, Joe, if they're going to pop up on the screen or not, but just maybe to review the responses. We got quite a mix. The largest response was, this is certainly on our radar, but we don't have immediate plans. The second largest was, we do have plans, and we're at the process of reviewing vendor options. And the smallest responses were either that we don't have plans to do so, or we've already chosen a vendor and we're well underway. So I think this webinar is quite timely because it looks like we're fairly early in the life cycle, although as we're going to see from our panelists, certainly it is a reality that can be achieved, and the banks that have already gone to market with paperless Treasury are yielding the benefits of it.
Yes, thanks, Dave. That certainly falls in line with what we have seen in talking with all of our clients and in the industry, so can't wait to hear from Christine and Steve about their experience.
So why don't we jump in? Just a quick background on Treasury Strategies. We're a consultancy that sees the market from 360 degrees. We not only work with banks and non-banks that provide payment and liquidity solutions, but we also are the leading consultancy to corporate treasury. And so we see firsthand what their pain points are and how they enjoy working with banks and where their frustrations are. So if we move forward, one of the things we're going to be sharing with you in the coming up slides here are some results of a survey that we did with Wausau. And I think it's important here we spoke both with banks and corporations. And actually since that time, Wausau has continued to survey banks, and I believe they have over 50 responses, and they're able to share even a richer set of results. And we looked at both very large companies, and we looked at banks of all sizes. And we're going to share some of those results with you as we move ahead. So some of the key takeaways. On the bank side, really paper is at the root of the problem, and banks are looking for opportunities to accelerate revenue and shorten the implementation cycle. And accelerating revenue doesn't just mean bringing the revenue in faster, but it also means a more complete implementation experience. As it is today, implementation is time-consuming. Sales gets involved either helping the customer through the process or having to track where things are. And so it's very time-consuming for the most significant resources that are out there to generate revenue. There's a lot of confusion around internal communication, and anytime you're using paper and manual tracking, it's obviously prone to error. One of the things that we did see in the survey was that small banks seem to be experiencing the pain points of implementation much more than the large banks. And at the time of the survey, none of the banks that were surveyed had adopted e-signature or tablet applications. But as we can see, we're now seeing these capabilities being deployed in the market with very strong results. Let's move ahead now and look at the corporate side. And corporations in the past bought bank services primarily based on feature functionality. And what we're seeing now is that feature and function are a given, and it's all about the quality of the experience that a corporate has with its bank. The quality of implementation was rated a very strong 3.8 out of 5 as being important in driving the sales process, the sales selection, but also future purchases. And when we really dug in and looked at what were the pain points corporations were experiencing around implementation, we found that most of these were really driven by bank deficiencies rather than things that were internal to corporations. Now, that's not to say they don't have their own issues, but they tend to be exacerbated by some of the challenges the banks face. And again, we see that the smaller corporations, middle market, the lower end of large corporate, they're experiencing the most pain around implementation. And this is something that Treasury Strategies has observed in our consulting work. The largest banks may even have a very broken implementation process, but they'll put a project manager in place which will almost shield or immunize the client from all of the pain on the back end. But in many cases, a smaller bank really doesn't have that capability. And with smaller clients, they're feeling more pain as well because they're not getting that project manager running interface on them. We tested out sort of the concepts around electronic documents, e-signatures, tablet applications, and corporations are very interested in these capabilities. Over 75% indicated they would prefer electronic documents, and over half believe that a tablet application would improve satisfaction. And that's not even getting into the benefits such as a digital environment providing better transparency, better business rules, better tracking of the implementation status. So the key takeaway here is that corporations are feeling pain. That pain is affecting how they buy and do business with banks, and they are very open to paperless solutions. So moving ahead, we will share a copy of this deck. So in some of the coming slides, we're not going to go through everything in detail, but when you look at the pain points, it's the lack of transparency, it's the disjointed communication, it's multiple paper forms, often asking for redundant information, and it's just the length of the implementation process. Corporations are no different than banks. They're stretched for organizational capacity and resources. They want banks to make things easy, accessible, and transparent. So turning to slide 12, one of the things that we see is banks need help managing and gathering documents. That is a major issue. There are many homegrown platforms or disjointed platforms. There's a lack of workflow capabilities. There's no ability to see the image of the document or get access to data in a digital environment. And as a result, the tracking of the implementation is quite poor. So turning ahead to slide 13, where are the opportunities to improve satisfaction? corporations are really factoring in implementation and service into their bank selection choice. So the qualities they're looking for are on time, accurate. They want clear roles. They want to understand what is expected of them. They want the process to be easy, convenient, and transparent, and they want to minimize their own time and costs. And you can see that these trends are really quite common among both the largest and the middle market companies. So we'll turn to slide 14. And what are banks looking for? Well, banks don't want to just sort of make a clunky manual process slightly better. They're really looking for transformational solutions. They want to deliver value. They want analytics and a dashboard. They also have incredible compliance pressures, and they want to integrate those into the implementation process. It doesn't do any good to streamline and improve automation for implementation if you're going to turn around and have a KYC process that is manual and disjointed. Banks are looking for paperless implementation. They understand the benefits of moving to a digital environment, but they're also looking to leverage the solution in other departments. With Basel III and other key trends, banks are really looking for that full relationship view, and they want to deliver the entire bank to the client in a seamless, integrated fashion. So turning to 15, what are corporations saying? We won't go through all of this, but I think what happens when the implementation process doesn't work well, it causes a lack of confidence in the bank. They see lack of expertise. They see the disjointed process. And, you know, it's kind of like a beautiful restaurant. If you go back in the kitchen and it's dirty and there's spaghetti sauce on the ceiling, it's going to affect the quality of the dining experience. So they're appreciative that there's more compliance. They're appreciative that banks have complicated back offices, but they want banks to be much more buttoned down and have a much more convenient, transparent process and not ask for the same information multiple times. So let's turn ahead. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joe to talk about Wausau's solutions.
I just want to take a few seconds to talk about Wausau. First, let me tell you what our mission is. We are catalyst for results by delivering the best financial technology solutions. We enable our clients to drive new revenue, improve the customer experience, reduce cost, and manage risk. Our solutions are focused on being the best of breed, and many of you probably know us for our integrated receivable solutions, which accelerate your cash flow and provide you with information to make business decisions, or our remote deposit capture solutions for accelerating deposits. Our third area of focus, paperless, complements both of these by improving the onboarding process so you can generate revenue faster for these services. On the next slide, Wausau is the #1 solution provider of retail and wholesale lockbox platforms. We currently have more than 150,000 remote deposit capture seats deployed and are processing more than 400 million annual transactions in our outsourcing operations. We have 9 of the top 10 U.S. banks, more than 70% of the telecommunications market, and some of the largest utilities and insurers and government agencies in the U.S. We have been utilizing our solutions to improve business processes, customer experience, while cutting costs and reducing risk. Our clients like Forward Financial have seen efficiency gains in their signature processes, going from 40 wet signatures to a single electronic signature, tremendous reduction in courier costs by electronifying documents, and efficiency gains like Washington Trust, who reduced the total time required by their staff to onboard customers by 15% and increase the overall acceleration of the customer onboarding by 35%. Building a business case for paperless treasury may include numerous factors, depending on your current environment. As our business analysts and engineers here at Wausau have worked with our financial institutions of all different sizes and focuses, we have seen many different combinations of treasury products offered, core solutions, enterprise content management, and workflow solutions. The primary factors to consider when building your case and identifying which gaps to fill based on what your current environment looks like are: how can you improve your customer experience? Based on the factors that Dave mentioned in the survey results, where are your biggest gaps? What processes can be streamlined, and what related costs can be removed? How can these efficiencies help you accelerate revenue, bring more business without increasing headcount, or both? How difficult is it to show your teams follow your documented processes, and report on an individual client. If you're like every other institution we have worked with, you will be able to start building your case and identify which technology and complementary solutions you need to focus on very quickly. As our clients have implemented solutions to address these areas, they've seen tremendous results. For example, some have seen more than a 25% reduction in the amount of data entry across the onboarding process, from the initial data entry from the sales team down through the implementations team, and even that data that goes to finance to set up billing. There's been over a 50% reduction in the amount of documents generated and consolidation of information across those agreements and addendums. One of the biggest factors is the improved communication, both internally and externally, resulting in a reduction in the amount of follow-up activities like phone calls, emails, and conference calls with customers. Obviously, paper is a major pain point, so reducing paper by over 70% certainly shines not just the cost of the paper, but also the associated expense in leasing multifunction devices and individual printers. All of these factors ultimately have led to an outstanding overall improvement of 35% in that onboarding process. Now let's hear from our panelists on their paperless treasury initiatives.
Great, thanks, Joe. So let's begin on slide 23, get a little bit of background information about our panelists. So why don't we start with Christine from Aleris Financial. And Christine, tell us a bit about how your Treasury Department and your implementation groups are organized, and maybe give us some scope of the size of the bank and its activities.
Sure. Aleris is currently a $1.4 billion bank. We have a relatively small treasury group for banks that size. We have 4 treasury specialists. We have 1 admin staff person. And then we have 4 operations staff. About a year ago, we did some restructuring with our onboarding. There was a lot of back and forth between the treasury specialists who were out selling the products to our customers, and then we used to have our operations staff complete our setups. About a year ago, we transitioned that responsibility over to the treasury specialists. So the 4 treasury specialists not only obtain the agreements and train the customer, but they're also doing their own installs as well. And we made that change just because we were losing there's a lot of communication breakdown between those out selling the product versus the people that were setting that up. And so we'll see how that is possibly able to maybe shift backwards with the workflow that we're implementing.
Great, thanks, Christine. And Steve, Christine talked on some of the pain points. Maybe you could share a little bit of background on West Suburban Bank, and also, perhaps some of the pain points that you were hoping to address through paperless treasury.
Sure. Well, we're just over $2 billion, 36 branches. Got about 75 personal bankers across those 36 branches. Treasury Department is supported by gets referrals, leads, primarily through our commercial group, but also the retail group. Our commercial lending group's 10 officers, however that's growing. And the Treasury group is a primary sales manager lead, and then 2 staff and 2 admin, and we're continuing to look to grow that. However, in light of the Wausau solution, the eCapture Express solution that we've been implementing, we're balancing how we're going to grow from a staff standpoint against the efficiencies that we believe we're going to get and continue to get from the system, from the solution.
Excellent. So why don't we move on to the next section, where we're really going to dive in here about the business case, because I think one thing we all face with our business units is we typically have to commit to some expense savings, some revenue gains, or other tangible benefits to warrant the investment. And Steve, why don't we start with you? What did you have to do to justify the spend on your paperless treasury initiative?
Well, for us, our leadership is one that's always embraced technology, and we've always looked for it for process efficiency, error reduction. So that was a big help. Secondly, what we were looking for was a solution that was more or less system or document agnostic, and so that took us in the direction of Wausau solution. And so we were looking at not only Treasury, which of course for us we've got 7 different Treasury services, and behind the Treasury department there could be up to 7 different back office departments involved with the setup. So it was fairly obvious to us that is a great place to start, just from the efficiencies gained based on some other workflow experience that we've already had internally in the bank. But we were also looking at, of course, how we can apply it into other areas. So again, acknowledging part of it being a philosophical view on technology, some already seen benefits of workflow in other solutions, and then a desire to eliminate paper. And as we look at that and applied that across our commercial lending group, documents on that side, in addition to Treasury, but also retail onboarding, as well as our home equity consumer lending. Several of our consumer lending products are closed within the retail branch. So we're looking, to deploy basically the same concept over and over again. So that's what really got into, drove our decision was a broad evaluation, of the technology and process improvement.
Excellent. And Christine, is there anything you'd add in terms of the business case and maybe any key metrics that you're really focused on in terms of outcomes?
Yes, one area that we also use to justify the spend is when we would have customers who would have an issue on their account or with their services, and we would go to pull up their agreements that we had on file, we would find that every now and again, when it was critical we have their agreements, they were missing. And so we not only justified it from a standpoint of we're going to free up our sales staff to focus on sales, but we also believe that there's a cost savings to cover the reputational risk of not having those appropriate documents on file. As far as things that we were going to measure, we calculated it out with our team. Because we were going out and getting paper documents, we were then coming back into the office and manually keying that information into several different databases and then completing the setup. We estimated that it was taking, on average, for the whole process, about 4 hours per install. We believe with the workflow, the way that it's written, we're just finishing up our user acceptance testing right now, that it will reduce that down to 1 hour. So we do expect to see very good results with that process, and that's how we're going to measure that.
Yeah, that's a tremendous reduction. And I want to switch from the business case on the next slide and really talk about how this is transforming how you interact with clients. And maybe Christine will stay with you a little bit. I know it's early stages, but as you've been deploying this, what's different about how you're interacting with your clients in terms of the documents, if you're using any kind of tablet device, how you're securing the signatures, how you're tracking things? Can you share some insights into how things have changed?
Yes, we will be going out with our customers, and we will be using tablets to have our customers sign right at their locations. For those clients who are outside of our geographic footprints that we may never meet, we are also deploying DocuSign technology to obtain those signatures electronically. which would then route it back into the workflow to get set up. We see faster implementation with our customers, and then what's also nice is it's inevitable at some point you may have someone out of the office unexpectedly. What this workflow does is it allows us to see how many setups we have in the pipeline. If anyone is out unexpectedly, one of us can easily step in and take care of our customers so that we don't have to start that process over. In the past, if the documents weren't saved to a central location or we didn't know where they were in the process, we had to engage our customer. This allows us to complete that seamlessly without our customers experiencing any of that pain.
That's great. And Steve, maybe you can comment as well. How has the interaction with customers been transformed, and what benefits do you see your customers realizing as part of this initiative?
Well, I would start with that from a setup perspective. We have one version of the truth that documents and records, if you will, what it is that the customer is looking for, and that single request form, which is captured electronically on the tablet, and then moves throughout the workflow to the various areas. That information is then able to be, used for the other parts of setup as applicable based on the service. So minimizing that keying or any rekeying of data as much as possible improves quality of service. So from that, startup and even testing and efficiency with onboarding, getting the customer started is much more smooth and accurate, and internally it's faster, and therefore the result in our response back to the customer has been faster as well. And that, of course, leads to confidence and perception of quality, which, feeds its way, honestly, from even the back office all the way back out to the commercial lending side in terms of managing their relationship. The expectations come in kind of high from the get-go in light of the amount of work that the lender is doing to bring that relationship over. So the best that we can make the Treasury process run and be efficient and smooth and accurate, the better. So we are definitely getting a quicker onboard and with higher quality.
That's excellent. It sounds like there's sort of two levels of benefits. On the one hand, you have the direct benefits of things being faster, easier, but then you also have the benefits of being in a digital environment, of really being able to track and put some intelligence and better handling, in the case that Christine mentioned, on top of the overall flow.
Right. I would add, too, that due to the integration with the core, the fact that the document completion itself in our preparation work is much more accurate, simply because of data that's able to come across from the core to pre-fill documents. So therefore, that improves quality and fewer errors. So the solution definitely integrates well and has the ability to bring data in from various places to make the process all the more effective.
Excellent. So we'll move ahead to the next topic, which is efficiency. And I know we've talked quite a bit about efficiency, but maybe staying with you, Steve, is there anything additional or any efficiencies that you weren't expecting that you realized that you might share with the audience?
Sure. One part is historically, when we started our Treasury, I can't remember how long ago now, but the online banking setup part was done completed in a separate back office unit, and through the workflow And the fact the efficiency, process efficiency that we can get from the system within the Treasury group themselves, we're starting to see that we could possibly do some consolidation and not have as many parties involved on the back end. Mm-hmm. And the one that we have already adjusted the process for is our call center group is who historically has onboarded accounts, both retail and business, into our online banking services. And so Treasury was leveraging them as a resource for a part of that onboarding process. So that's been adjusted now to where Treasury is able to do some of that for various reasons, but primarily due to the workflow efficiency. So that's one item. Christine kind of touched on it a little bit in their solution, in their business case, and that is that we can't be everywhere at every time in terms of closing some of these deals, and so we've realized that we need to move forward with a solution that allows the customer to interact with us remotely, and that we can deliver and that they can sign and bring back to us, without us having to be present as well. So looking to leverage more technology in light of right-sizing our sales staff.
Mm-hmm. Great. And Christine, Steve had mentioned that this solution was being used not only for the Treasury products, but also for lending, and it was leveraged in multiple product areas across the bank. How important was it to Aleris Financial to be able to leverage this solution? And do you have plans to, what's the full scope of how you're planning to roll this out in terms of the bank's product areas?
I think it played an important role because we wanted to have one solution to capture electronic signatures across all different departments of the bank. It is easier from an implementation point if you have a product that can roll out across departments. It's easier to maintain. There's less vendor reviews to perform. We are starting with Treasury. We are at the same time also working towards implementing the workflow and the delivery system for our account opening process as well as our lending department.
Okay, excellent. So we'll move on to the topic of compliance and regulation. We put this toward the end because I think often once we broach this topic, it can consume us. But obviously we're in an environment where not only do we have a lot of risks that we have to manage, but there's also a lot of concerns around customer privacy, whether it's HIPAA information, credit card data, just bank information generally. And I'm curious as to whether the paperless Treasury approach was helpful in managing compliance and risk. I know anytime we have paper involved, manual processes involved, there's the risk of error. But maybe let's start with Christine. Maybe share a little bit. Were there any benefits in the area of compliance and risk?
The one thing that really benefits us is the workflow is completely customizable, and so we have determined the areas that on the documents absolutely need to be filled out, and there's accuracy checks. So those are required fields. The setup can't be completed without it. The other nice piece of it is the agreements are automatically archived, so from a compliance and risk standpoint, you know that your agreements are always there. Even the drafts of when you first start the process are there. And then we also built into the workflow our underwriting controls to make sure that when we had to underwrite for services such as ACH or remote deposit, that step wasn't being missed. And that automatically will also route to our underwriters over a certain dollar threshold. And so that will be a big improvement in our processes.
Excellent. And Steve, anything you would add to that in terms of risk and compliance changes?
No, not too much. I mean, similar to Christine and Aleris in that risk assessment internally through the workflow, the fact that it's ensured that we get that completed as part of the onboarding process, you know, from a FFIEC, you know, RDC guideline perspective, having that up front as part of the onboarding, and similar to what Christine said, engagement back to the lender regarding limits, but also for us in one area in the back office where we do establish limits from an ACH monitoring standpoint. You know, ensuring that those limits based on the outcome of the underwriting, that those limits indeed got established in a subsequent system that we use to monitor for like corporate account takeover. So ensuring that those, not only the documents, but the controls, the risk controls, the monitoring controls are all set up basically before the customer starts to originate items.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So if we move on to the last question for our panelists, and time permitting, we're going to raise the questions that have been captured throughout from the audience. But our last question really gets to the issue we raised, where the salespeople tend to get way involved in implementation. And one of the things I know in this spread compressed environment, you know, banks are really looking to unlock the value of the sales force. So I'm very curious to understand from each of you what impact a paperless treasury process had upon your sales force, and are you getting more productivity out of sales and more effectiveness? So maybe Steve, we'll begin with you. What effect did the paperless implementation process have on the business and the sales team?
Well, it's definitely freed them up to be more engaged with the customer and to be able to focus on sizing the right, you know, matching the customer's needs to, or matching our products, matching our products and services to the customer's needs. You know, we have lockbox services. That's one that can be a little bit of an intensive process on the sales side. You know, very competitive, and it could be very involved in terms of the customer's needs. So allowing them to work with the customer on the customer's needs and not worry about, you know, where's this agreement for my next visit that I got this afternoon, because the workflow is managing that and they're able to monitor that. So I would say peace of mind. I also would say that it brings a level of confidence to the staff internally that they can, you know, they have the right tools to do their job and to do their job in the best way possible. And, you know, they can be more productive and can be more satisfied with their work because we have an effective, efficient process and system that's, you know, allowing them to, you know, get their work done each day.
Great. And Christine, anything you would add to Steve's comments?
I think what we're probably excited about also is not only just onboarding new clients, but during an acquisition, I think it allows us to have a better handle on where we are in onboarding a large volume of clients all at the same time, and it makes us more nimble, and then we can move forward and transition an acquisition and feel a lot more comfortable about where we are in the process and that we obtained everything that we needed to. It just creates better service overall.
Okay, great. Well, at this point, we're going to flip ahead, and Joe's going to return, talk a little bit about the business case, and then we'll have a polling question and go into kind of an open Q&A. Joe?
Thank you, Bill. We have worked with a number of our clients on developing a business case really to help you identify all of those gaps in your current processes that could benefit by implementing a paperless treasury solution. And really that paperless treasury solution is the glue that really connects all of your legacy systems and all of the processes that you have today to create that visibility and really allow everybody throughout the process know where things are at, be consistent in your processes, and ultimately onboard your customers much quicker and have a full audit trail at the end of the process. If you are interested in more information, we'd be happy to share our business case with you and help you step through that. So at this point, we would like to open it up and first just ask you, would you be interested in receiving more information on how we could help you improve your paperless treasury initiative?
Okay, and while we're asking that question, we have a lot of great questions. I don't know that we're going to have all the time to get through them, but one of the questions here is for Christine and Steve, maybe addressing the process that each of you went through internally to gain approval to use DocuSign electronic signatures. And what I'm guessing is being referenced there is, how did you help the bank get comfortable with the idea of e-signatures, you know, given some of the legal and risk hurdles that one has to jump through to get that kind of change implemented?
This is Christine. Stevie,
go ahead, Christine.
Sorry, I probably should have I should have asked one at a time. But Christine, why don't you jump in first? Okay,
sure. We obviously had our compliance staff involved with it. We developed a disclosure. The reason we were comfortable with it is because with DocuSign or the workflow, there's the signature, time stamp, and location stamp. So we feel very comfortable knowing that the individuals that are out obtaining signatures, we can capture that data, as well as we know who our customers are who are signing that, and all of that data is available in audit reports. And so they weren't as afraid to roll that out. So we had the product offers everything that you need from a compliance standpoint.
Steve?
Yeah, I would say similarly. We definitely had compliance involved. You know, the capturing signatures electronically has been around for a while, so you know that wasn't as much of a hurdle, you know, for us. The compliance, as I say, was involved, and you know, we were just making sure we were dotting all our I's, crossing our T's appropriately. You know, from a compliance perspective. DocuSign, we haven't, we know that that's a need. We know that that's a business direction that we need to go to. You know, so we're not, we haven't pulled the trigger on that part yet, but we will be soon.
Okay, excellent. We also had a question here just on the level of paperlessness that was achieved. That's not actually a good noun there, but curiosity as to what percentage of the paper were you able to drive out, or maybe what percentage of clients are now fully paperless in the implementation process. And Steve, maybe put you on the spot first there. Any estimates on that?
Well, I don't have a hard number in front of me on the number of documents, but just knowing that, as I said earlier, one version of the truth in terms of the the information that came in on the request, the sales request, but also with the pre-fill capability of the data from the core, we know that you know, we are generating fewer documents. The customer may not necessarily see it, but you know, internally, when we do have to still use a wet signature, that is fewer. But obviously that's not the goal. You know, the goal is to have it completely electronic. So, you know, reduction of paper and making them electronic it's more or less, I would say, inherent in the solution. So it's, sometimes we don't spend a lot of time thinking about some of the hard numbers like that, because we just know proof of concept. and
right.
we know what our volume is, and therefore we're more about, we understand the proof, we know it's out there, let's get it in.
Yeah, and then you're working toward 100%. Christine, anything you would add there?
No.
Okay, great. You know, one of the questions, I don't know if either one of you can comment on this as well, but curiosity as to what impact this has had on the environment. And I know this is more common in Europe, but many banks might have even a broader initiative where they're trying to reduce paper, reduce greenhouse emissions, and I'm not sure if either of your bank went ahead and created kind of an environmental impact target for that, but I imagine there must be quite an environmental impact. Do either of you have anything to share on that topic?
No, environmental, no. No, it's, I mean, we are on a paper reduction, you know, push, so.
Part of an overall bank strategy.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. We have a question about EBAM, which is electronic bank account management. Our adoption rate's increasing, and I guess I might tackle this first. You know, it's interesting, when EBAM was introduced, it was very much a multinational, large corporate initiative, and now we obviously have the SWIFT standards where the largest companies can use SWIFT message sets to open up, close, modify, change accounts and permissioning. And that sort of, you know, got a lot of attention for a while, and there's vendor solutions out there for that with Wall Street Systems and others. But I guess from Treasury Strategies perspective, what we're seeing is kind of more of a Main Street EBAM, where, you know, banks like Aleris Financial, West Suburban Bank are allowing clients to do things electronically. And maybe what I'll toss out there is, you know, strategically, maybe begin with Christine. You know, do you see this ultimately morphing into a capability of your clients to go online and manage their bank accounts and permission? How integrated is that angle with your overall paperless treasury initiative?
I do think that we will see that come across to our online account opening process. As we get more comfortable with it, I think the main focus for us is to streamline everything at account opening at the branch, and you know, to that point on reducing paper, not have all those disclosures that you're printing off for the customer to sign, and then you have to scan them into your documents. So I do see that will be integral to our online account opening process as we move forward.
Steve, any thoughts?
Yeah, we haven't really broached online, you know, opening or self-service too much there. However, you know, we are on some of our other initiatives are looking at CRM as a whole and customer relationship management, and you know, just knowing the trends in the industry that people are coming into physical branches less and desire to have more self-service, that we're looking at ways to still keep our community bank feel, but allow the customer to interact with us, you know, through some online channels and still retain that personal connection that they've had with their lending officers and, you know, treasury, and of course their, you know, on the retail side, the personal banker who they've been dealing with for the last, you know, 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. This next question might be best for Joe, and the question here is, how does the Wausau paperless treasury system work when dealing with global account opening?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. Our solution is very, very configurable from a standpoint that we come in with our business analysts to really map out what your existing business process is. So regardless of where you are doing business, we can adapt our out-of-the-box solution, which does include a number of elements from the forms to gather all of the information to meet all of your compliance requirements based on your location or the locations you are doing business in. and map that to the agreements that also come with the solution to meet those requirements, and then based on all of that information that's gathered, route it through the appropriate workflow as well. So it doesn't matter where you do business today, what the regulations are for each of those regions, or how many different combinations of requirements you have to make, the solution can adapt to all of them.
Excellent. So we also have just sort of a technical question here about whether or not the deck will be shared. And yes, the deck will be available to everyone who joined the webinar. So at this point, we're gonna flip to the last page, but I want to thank our panelists for joining. And Joe's going to share some information about Wausau's availability to have additional discussions with anyone that is intrigued and interested in this solution.
Yes, thank you everyone, Christine, Steve, and Bill for moderating, as well as everybody who attended. If you would like more information on Wausau's paperless treasury solution, or you'd like to schedule an appointment to meet with us during AFP in November, please contact John Gustafson, whose contact information is on screen. And thank you everyone again for attending today's webinar, and have a great afternoon.